Barry's league meeting. Once Iris and Barry got back to their home, Iris instantly got to work. She first had Barry make her a supercharged coffee as she wasn't going to be sleeping tonight. Once she got her phone, she began to transfer the pictures and the video to her laptop to begin working on her article. Meanwhile, Barry stood over her shoulder as he saw her type away at a furious speed. You know, if you rush, you are going to make mistakes. Iris knew he was right, but right now she just wanted to get her ideas onto the computer. It's fine, I got the best grammar checker in the world. You. Barry smirked as he took a seat next to her. As she was typing, she suddenly stopped what she was doing before glancing at Barry's face. She leaned over and gave him a quick kiss on his cheek. So what do you think of Balerion? Pretty intimidating, right? Like a badass knight from a fantasy novel. Barry raised his head with a fake disappointed look on his face. Oh, so the Flash isn't badass? She instantly shook her head. Nope, you are more heroic than cool. Now Balerion, with that big set of armor and the sword, just screams awesome. As for Hound, you have to admit he is a cutie, even with all the armor and the shadows around him. Once these pictures are out, I bet the merchandise for him is going to sell like hotcakes. Mostly among the kids. Barry sat down next to Iris as he thought about that. Balerion is a mage, so I think he wouldn't be too happy with people making a profit off of him. If they do make merchandise off of his likeness, I bet he is going to show up to demand a big cut. Iris felt that was fine. Which would be within his right. Regardless, would you give him a vote to let him join the league? Barry thought about it as Balerion was approachable even if he was impossible to find. He was respectful when you talked to him, but his heavy-handed approach to crime was going to be dividing in the league. Some of the founding members might disapprove, like Superman. Batman and Balerion operated very similarly, as Batman's criminals also ended up with broken bones and similar injuries. The problem was that Balerion made it clear he would begin working in Gotham. Wonder Woman would give her a vote, probably since she would respect another warrior like her who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Shazam was a big fan of comics and video games, and just for that, he would agree. Hal Jordan as a Green Lantern was not averse to killing, and Arthur wouldn't care as long as Balerion didn't cause trouble for Atlantis. Martian Manhunter was a pacifist, and he wasn't one for brutalizing criminals, so getting his vote would be difficult. It might be rough, but I think he has what it takes. That is unless he starts pissing off Batman, though, as that is a lost vote. So, he might be better off as a league ally rather than a full-fledged member. Iris nodded as she continued on her article. It will all work out for the best. Now, what do you think of your suit getting a little magic added to it? Barry cleared his voice as he could not help being a bit excited. It's kind of unbelievable. There was a point when I didn't believe in magic, but meeting the magic users of the league opened my eyes. Knowing that some magic is going to be added to my suit feels interesting. Wonder how long it will take. As for Victor, he had already gotten started on enchanting the suit. First, he turned the suit inside out to place the enchantments on the inside of the suit. Out of the runic alphabet, he began to write down different ones across the lining. He added runes to disperse heat, reduce friction, auto-repair, and even anti-scrying runes to prevent someone from finding out Barry's identity. As for the mask, he also added a feature that made it troublesome to actually look at Barry's face for too long. They would also prevent a telepath from reading Barry's mind, as the suit would form protections. To top it all off, he avoided placing his personal nightmare and fear runes and instead placed more runes to disperse shock waves, and even a feature to clean the suit. After the inside of the suit was enchanted, he made sure to add runes in the script to make it impossible to read. It caused the runes to fuse with the suit itself, causing them to disappear from sight. All in all, the enchanting alone only took him about 20 minutes. His new race made anything dealing with magic almost instinctive. And I am already done. Lorna looked over his shoulder at the suit, which didn't seem any different. However, thanks to the way Victor had awakened her powers, she could slightly sense the magic in the suit. That was quick, Victor nodded. Ever since I became a Nephilim werewolf, my control over magic became almost instinctive. Enchanting is still something I have to focus on, but it really helps. I am almost sure that I can create some more extreme rituals, but I need magical materials. My trip to Romania and the Phi lands is going to be important to me. Until then, Yami takes this back to Barry. Victor placed Barry's suit back into the holding ring. He also wrote another letter quickly before dropping both into Yami's shadow. Yami, with a happy bark, jumped back into his shadow as he began to make his way to the house of Barry and Iris. While Iris continued to upload the pictures taken of Balerion, Barry kept her company. As Iris continued to work, they both heard the doorbell ring. That is when they began to hear the familiar sound of a dog scratching at the door. Barry stood up before he walked over to open the door. Sitting outside was Yami, who was wagging his tail and panting with a funny look on his face. Barry was confused. "Hound, is it done already?" Yami nodded his head before he dug his head into the shadow before pulling out Barry's ring and a new letter. Barry took his ring back before he opened the letter. "Barry, I finished enchanting your suit. I added runes that disperse heat, reduce friction, repair the suit passively, and even clean it. The anti-scrying runes are in the mask to prevent a magic user or telepath from trying to read your mind. Sincerely, Balerion." Much like Victor's other letters, this one burst into flame as well. When Barry saw that, he shook his head as he just took it as one of Balerion's hobbies. Iris, though, looked from behind Barry at Yami at the door. "Thanks, buddy." With that, he jumped back into the shadows before he returned to his master's side. Barry then got his suit out before he wanted to check it out. While Barry did that, Iris went back to her new article. Following his meeting with Barry and Iris, Victor, Lorna, and Yami continued their nightly activities. Crime was at an all-time low in both day and night since criminals never had peace. In the day or night, Central City quickly became one of the safest cities in the nation. Most of the major gangs had been dismantled with their members either in hospital beds, prisons, or psychiatric hold for fear of the dark. That was when Iris released her second article detailing her second interview with the man responsible. This time she even had photos to back up her claim, which shut up her doubters. Inside her article were some of the best shots of Balerion and Hound at different angles, and the fact that she was in the pictures made it all the more believable. Both her articles spread out through the internet at wild speeds, and her boss at the Daily Planet begged her for another article on Balerion. It didn't even have to be an interview, he just wanted an article on Central City's new protector. Iris decided to begin to interview people who lived in the areas where Balerion had been most active. How his nighttime activities had affected their lives in positive ways. Her second article, however, reached Batman in Gotham. Hearing that Balerion planned to enter his city didn't go well with him. Gotham was his turf, and other heroes would just make a mess of things. He got his chance to speak about this almost 5 days after the interview, as there was a League meeting scheduled at the Watchtower. Up in orbit, several members of the Justice League gathered around a large circular table. Superman, Shazam, Dr. Fate, Zatanna, Cyborg, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, and Green Arrow. The heroes had all stopped crises, natural disasters, world-conquering plots, stopped alien invaders, and fought gods to protect this planet. However, the focus of today's meeting was Balerion. Superman, from his seat, began the meeting. "Today we have all gathered to discuss Balerion, the new vigilante in Central City. For the past few months, he has been the most famous newcomer, but not the only one. Flash, he is active in your city, what do you think of this?" "I don't have an issue with it. When he first got started, I had my reservations because the hospitals got full of men with severe injuries. However, it was easy to find out because they were so terrified they confessed their crimes. I can't be around day and night even if I try, but Balerion, who is active only at night, lets me focus on the day. I even managed to meet with the guy yesterday. Sure, he looks terrifying, but he is surprisingly respectful." Superman nodded as he heard what Barry said. The 2 articles of Iris of her interviews with him mentioned that he seeks League status. "We have let in a multitude of heroes around the world, so this can be no different. The issue that we can all admit isn't Balerion's methods, it is his obscurity. He showed up out of nowhere in Central City, where he has fought crime for months. His methods are quite similar to Batman's, only Balerion goes a step further while avoiding killing. Some of the criminals he stopped would wish they were. When you met him, what were you thinking?" Barry thought back to the meeting 5 days ago. "Well, the first thing is big. He is huge, wears a massive set of knight-like armor with a hound helmet. His gauntlets have claws, and he is enveloped in an aura of absolute darkness. His dog, Hound, is the same, but I have seen him without the armor. Big black dog, red eyes with a crimson gem in his forehead. What I was thinking was that this guy would be terrifying to face at night. That is the first thing I thought, but as I talked to him, I thought about his methods and that they worked. Batman, however, brought up his misgivings. His actions may mirror mine in some ways, but if he wants league status, it will take more than just 2 interviews. We need to meet him on neutral ground, and his oath to enter Gotham is causing the criminal underground of Gotham to go into panic mode. They fear him more than Batman, and from what I have seen in just the last 5 days, they are gathering men, an arsenal, and information in fear. They are preparing for him like he is a demon. Diana had an idea as she turned to Bruce. Why not get his help? He is a magic user, is he not? We could do with more of them in our ranks. Bruce was going to counter that he didn't trust anyone else in Gotham, but Shazam cut him off. I think the guy is sick. The armor, the sword, the dog, it's all so badass. He hasn't killed anyone, and he has made Central City double safe. You do need the help, Bats. Besides, he can actually control the shadows. Could do to have that kind of help at night. Barry also brought something else up. He also did me a favor when we met. He enchanted my suit for me. Dr. Fate glanced at Barry before he spoke. I wondered why I could sense magic on your suit. Why would he enchant it for you? Barry shrugged. He was either being friendly, but I think the main reason was to show what he can offer. Zatanna decided to warn Barry about trusting random mages. You don't know what kind of curses or tricks he could have placed on your suit. Barry didn't disregard her concern, but he did not believe it. If you have doubts, I can let you analyze the suit to make sure nothing negative was done to it. I have tested it out and the suit works better than before. Zatanna nodded. That will be for the best. For your safety. Hal Jordan nodded as he gave his thoughts. I like the sound of the guy, but as Batman said, we need more than 2 interviews. It's better to meet with the guy, and what about his true identity? Would he give us that? Barry cleared his voice. That is the thing, he already knows who all of you are. He said it was common sense and a bit of magic. Batman scowled. Did he mention my name? Barry nodded. First guy he mentioned. When I asked how he knew, he said what billionaire in Gotham has the motive, reason, and background to make all his gadgets. He also mentioned that it was obvious when you look at the Robins and the kids Bruce Wayne adopts. Diana chuckled. He has you there, Bruce. I think I am going to make a trip to Central City. I want to meet this night. Superman nodded. So, Diana, you are going to vet him? Diana nodded. Yes. Superman accepted that. Anyone else want to go? Shazam raised his hand. Can I cough? I will go too. He craned his head and saw he was being stared at by everyone. Sorry about that. Green Arrow smirked. Have fun, you too. Everyone ignored his outburst before Diana and Billy decided to go with Barry through the League Zeta beams to teleport to Central City. They would first have to find Valerian, but Barry had a pretty good idea how to get him to a meeting. 27 comments 0 vote. Wonder Woman and Shazam. When Diana, Billy, and Barry arrived at Central City, it was a little after 10 p.m. After they stepped out of the League teleporter, they looked up in the sky and saw a large bright full moon. Billy smiled as he gazed at the beautiful moon, as he always did, like the moon. A full moon for the night and his hound seems fitting. Flash, about what time does Valerian move about? Barry wasn't really sure, as it was just after dark. For all he knew, Valerian could be out right now. I really don't know when he moves about. He can dive into the shadows and teleport through them. He also can use magic to hide himself, so by the time we find and reach the criminals he apprehends, he is long gone. At the moment, Barry was using a spare suit as he had turned his suit to Zatanna and Dr. Fate for analysis. He was sure that nothing negative was put in, but proving it would be more effective than just his word. Diana crossed her arms as this was going to be troublesome. Then how are we supposed to find him? Do you have any way to get in contact with him? Barry shook his head. I have no clue how to find Valerian. He always comes to us instead of us going after him. Do you have any ideas? Billy began to rub his hands together as he had a good one. We do a bit of lightning show to get his attention. That would work, right? Diana wasn't on board with that plan. It would disturb the people. Something more efficient would be a flare or signal of some kind that doesn't bother others. Barry was fine either way. Alright, there is no guarantee that he will show up, though. I will start running through the city, and maybe he will talk to me. Dash. While the 3 League members thought of ideas on how to find Victor, he was not far away. He was a few blocks away, currently standing on the ledge of a large building. Next to him was Yami, fully covered in dark shadow armor that billowed around his form. It was also enchanted just like Victor's own armor, and since Yami was in his true wolf form, he was much larger than before. Alongside them was Lorna, who had grown used to this new life of hers. A chance meeting with Victor and her life had fully changed. Before, she had been rather shy, reserved, and meek. However, her entire personality had changed when she had gained her powers. She even knew a few magic spells that complemented her powers. It was all thanks to her mentor, Victor. She was going to keep thinking when she felt him slightly elbow her on her shoulder. Pay attention, you don't want to get caught off guard, do you? She rubbed her shoulder a bit as he was super strong, and that armor hurt. Sorry, master, I let my mind wander. Victor turned away from her as he looked down at the current situation. This building was overlooking one of the most popular nightclubs in downtown Central City. Normally, a target that wouldn't be hit like this, but it seemed he was wrong. Down below, he saw at least 10 vans and trucks pull up in front of the club. From them emerged several men in riot gear and military-type body armor. He counted at least 50 men, and he could see they were armed with not just assault rifles, but some even carried RPGs, grenade launchers, and anti-tank missiles. The bodyguard at the front of the club saw the armed men. He began to run, but one man in the group raised a peculiar weapon. It looked like a handheld futuristic weapon, which he fired. From it emerged a beam of pure cold that just when it was going to hit the security guard, Victor and Yami's shadow warped in front of the beam. He twitched his fingers, causing a shield of dark purple fire from Incinerate Anthem to block the beam in its path. Captain Cold. The way his voice echoed in his helmet unnerved the men who had come along with Cold. There you are, Knight. You have been a pain in my ass for a while now. A lot of men want you dead, that is why I lured you out here. As Captain Cold said this, the men that came with him began to surround Victor. They trained their rifles, grenade launchers, and anti-tank missiles right at him. Thanks for taking the bait. Victor turned around and ignored them as Lorna could handle them all. He turned to the guard whom he had saved from being frozen. He waved his hand, putting him to sleep. While his back was turned, Captain Cold and Heatwave raised their cold and heat guns, but before they could fire, every last gun and weapon flew out of their hands. Lorna was already flying above them, and she used her magnetism to rip their guns away. Even without me here, what can your pebbles and firecrackers do? She then waved her hand, causing the guns and other weapons to wrap around their necks. She closed her fingers, causing the 50 men to start getting strangled by their own guns. She motioned with her hand, lifting all 50 off the ground, causing them to be hanged by their own guns. Victor then seemed to turn into shadows before he reformed in front of Heatwave and Captain Cold. He grabbed them by their throats before he smashed their heads against each other, knocking them out. After a few more seconds, Lorna dropped the men she was hanging, causing them to gasp for air. However, she then waved her hand, using the guns around their necks to tie them up to the club. Done. She landed in front of Victor and Yami, making him smile behind his helmet. Well done, chalking them out with their own weapons was quite smart. I took your advice, as long as they survive in the end, being harsh on them is fine. Victor was going to continue on with his patrol, but before then, he took Captain Cold's and Heatwave's weapons. They could be fascinating technology for study, which he dropped into his shadow. As for the 2 criminals, he used magic to keep them asleep. He then proceeded to dislocate their shoulders before tying them up to a street lamp. This way, they would need more time before they could even think of escaping. Once they were tied up, he clapped his hands together as he felt it was time to go. All in a day's work, or night's work. Just as he was about to leave, Barry, who had begun his run around the city, had quickly passed through this exact location. When he saw Victor, Yami, and Lorna, he stopped running before he turned to the 50 men tied up to the building. What the heck happened? Captain Cold and Heatwave took a hit on my life. They were going to take this club hostage, but I got to them before they could even enter the club. Problem solved. Barry turned to Captain Cold and Heatwave, who were tied up to a street light. He noticed something about the way their arms were positioned that made him turn to Victor. What is wrong with their arms? I dislocated them. Barry sighed, but he didn't bring it up. Forget it, I will call the police, and they can deal with this. One thing I do have to say is that this is the first time I can find you. I didn't put up a magic barrier like I usually do. Since I was going to leave regardless, this is the only time you will find me like this. Barry felt that explained why they could never find Balerion. It is a good thing you didn't put up a barrier, as we needed to talk to you. We had a meeting about you, and Wonder Woman and Shazam came to speak to you. It's about your entrance into the league. Victor nodded. In that case, seems it was a good thing I didn't put my barrier up. I really need to think about giving you a way to contact me. Regardless, let's go. Barry sighed as he decided to call Diana. I found him already. Come to my location. Diana was still near the league. Teleporter tracked Barry's location before she began to fly in his direction. Billy flew next to her, and thanks to their flight, they arrived at Barry's location in record time. Victor, Yami, and Lorna glanced in the sky as Diana and Billy landed in front of them. When they arrived, Victor was the first to speak. Welcome, Shazam and Wonder Woman. I am Valerian, this is my partner, Hound. This is my apprentice, Polaris. As Barry explained to me, you are here to talk to me about my request to enter the league. Diana stepped forward as she began to take in the sight of Victor's armor. For a woman, she was quite imposing as she was 6 feet 2, taller than Lorna, but still shorter than Victor, who was 6 feet 7. She looked Victor up and down before she extended her hand. Nice to meet you. Victor shook her hand with his clawed gauntlets, feeling the strength behind her hand shake. Likewise. When she released his hand, he turned to Billy. As he was in his Shazam persona, Billy wanted to act like a proper adult, so he extended his own hand. I am Shazam. Valerian. Victor shook his hand as well, and with introductions out of the way, Diana decided to go ahead and state her business. I won't lie about why I am here to vet you. Barry has met you once, and you are a big unknown. I hope that doesn't offend you. Victor shook his head. It doesn't. I know very well that I have kept myself out of sight for the most part. People know who I am, but actually finding me is almost impossible. I could be anyone under his mask after all. Exactly. You have no need to answer this, but you can if you want. Why do you want to join the league? Surely, you would be fine like this. Victor tilted his head. 2 reasons. The first reason is merely wanting to complete a childhood dream of being a leaguer. The second is because the Justice League is a gathering of the strongest heroes who fight threats from space, other dimensions, and from this world. I felt it would be a good place to hone my skills as a magic user and warrior. Does that answer your question? Diana nodded. It does. I can understand that desire, but is there any reason you began your vigilantism in Central City? I grew up in Central City. I am a person born on this planet, in this city, and I felt why not fight crime in my own city. Simple as that. Shazam raised his hand. Question, where did you get the dog? Why does he have power and stuff? Billy pointed at Yami, who had been sitting like a good dog the whole time. Victor patted Yami on his helmet before he shrugged. I found him when I was a little boy. As he grew up, he changed, and as I learned my magics, he got his powers too. Billy kneeled down before he began to pat Yami on the head. Since Yami was fully wearing a full metal plate, it wasn't much fun to pet him, but Billy didn't mind. Sweet, he is like that boss in Black Souls. The Hound of the Abyss. That sounded like a DC version of Dark Souls, which interested him. Sounds fun, but let's get back on track. I am sure you have some big questions about me, so go ahead and ask. Diana nodded as she asked the real question here. The man under the helmet, who is he? You, who are you? Victor crossed his arms. Not answering that. I just met you, and I have no guarantees I will be allowed to join after revealing that. Until such time that I feel secure, my face remains hidden. Diana nodded. I understand. We have much to talk about, but this is not a good place. Barry, can we use your house? Barry nodded. I am fine with that. Lorna turned to Victor before she used telepathy to speak with him. What do you think? Think you got a chance to get in like this? Not this time, but it is just a vetting. If I get rejected, I don't really care. Understood. Shazam, Wonder Woman, Victor, Barry, Lorna, and Yami began to make their way to Barry's house. There they would talk more at length about Victor's entrance into the league. Before that, Barry called 911 for them to pick up the criminals, Cold and Heatwave. He did say they would need several ambulances and cars to move them all. That would be another story in the crimes that Victor stopped. All in a night's work after all. 44 comments 0 vote. The first meeting. I am back after a 2-month hiatus of not writing. I got sent to the hospital and then I got a serious case of uninspiration, but I should be back more often. When the group finally reached Barry's house, they did so in relative silence. No one really wanted to talk at first, but when Barry opened the door and Iris went to meet him, She did not expect to see two Leaguers enter along with Valerian, Polaris, and Hound. Iris looked at Barry, waiting for him to explain. We needed a more private place to talk without interruption. My house just made the most sense. Iris glanced over at Wonder Woman, Shazam, and Victor, who was towering, armored, and brooding like a more terrifying Batman. Just like their last interview, but she didn't fear him at all. It's fine with me. I will get some coffee on the stove. As she walked to the kitchen, Victor snapped his clawed gauntlets, and the living room magically expanded, and from the shadows emerged a dark constructed throne of darkness, which he sat on. He reached behind him, he grabbed his sword still in its sheath, before glancing at Diana. It is custom to place our weapons on the table like in the olden days, yes. Diana reached down and unhooked her sword and placed it on the table along with her shield. I respect that, Knight. Once she did it first, he set his greatsword onto the table, and he leaned back. Yami, large and armored, rests against his leg while Lorna steps in right behind him at his side. Diana, Billy, and Barry all sit as well, and for a few moments, no one says a word. It is not until Victor speaks and as usual his hound-shaped helmet distorts his words to near growls, yet still understandable. I will start our parley tonight. Miss Iris, the wife of Barry here, has had 2 interviews with me before, as I wanted to not be just the unknown terror of Central City. My methods are grim, but I am no less a force against crime than any Leaguer. As he takes the floor, Iris walks in with a tray and sets down the coffee on the table next to the swords of Diana and Valerian. Coffee. Billy takes a steaming cup and takes a sip before he frowns. Why does anyone drink this? Victor waves his hand, and one of the cups levitates toward him. He brings it up to his helmet and, in some way, starts to drink it. Diana takes her cup as well, and she starts the talk after him. That is why we are here, Valerian. I appreciate that you agreed to this meeting in your own way. This isn't an interrogation, but we owe the people transparency, and the League wants to have a more detailed talk with you in person than just what was said over an interview. Victor sets down his cup of coffee, half empty, and he nods. Understable. The interviews I gave Miss West were not just to get my intention to hopefully become a League member, but it was also to get my words out to the public, who no doubt either fear me or deeply appreciate what I do. As you may have noted, the crime rate in Central City is almost non-existent as it has Flash by day and me by night. If there are any reservations about how far I go, I must bring up the fact that you yourself have killed in battle, and Batman is no less brutal in how he deals with crime in Gotham. Diana nods. Perfectly reasonable, but me being here does not have to do with your method of dealing with crime or the fact that no one knows who you are. You're not the first to remain anonymous or independent. It's your clear magical expertise as you just showed now. Your magic doesn't follow any model we've encountered. Fate, Zatanna, even Raven couldn't place it. When Victor heard that, he smirked, but because of his helm, no one saw it. I wouldn't expect them to. What I know is not learned from a book or anyone. I created my magics myself. Billy perks up as, while his powers may be magic-based, he likes hearing about them. Wait, so, the shadows, the disappearing act, and the constructs, all that was just something you made up? Victor nodded. That is exactly right. He then points at Yami, who is like a small black bear in size. And the armor doggo. Victot glances at Yami, and he pats his armored head a few times. My familiar hound. Don't ask where I got him, he is one of a kind. Barry nods. That is actually what many wonder about. Hound, a dog and yet not a dog. Are you sure you can't give us a clue? Victor shakes his head slowly, and Barry sighs. Understood. Diana then brought up the incident they had just seen him stop. So, cold and heatwave, total shoulder dislocations, clean, no permanent damage. The 50 gunmen, though, were tied up with their own firearms. That was your associate, right? He raises one clawed finger. Correction, Polaris is my apprentice, not my associate. My dear, do you have any words you have to add? Lorna shakes her head. I got nothing, master. They planned to take hostages to deal with you, so they got choked out by their own guns. Seemed fair to me. Victor then turned back to the 3 League members. There you have it. Now, do we have anything else to go over today? Diana nods. One more subject, really, it is the detail of your identity. In the event you do join the League, are you going to reveal who you are? Victor ponders on it. That is subject to change and at first I will remain anonymous, but in due time I am sure I can be convinced to reveal myself. However, this is only if I am given league status, and you give me a reason to trust you fully. I will consider it, but until then, no. Shazam felt that was fine. That's fair. I mean, Batman still hasn't told me his real name. Barry glanced at Billy with a funny look. Yes, he has. You just weren't paying attention. Billy thinks back to it, and thanks to the wisdom of Solomon, he remembers, and he nods a few times. Ah, right. While Billy was remembering this, Diana reached for her sword and shield as they got the most important parts of the meeting, and everything didn't have to be agreed on day one. I don't think we'll solve this all tonight. But this is a step. I'll deliver my report personally. For what it's worth, I believe you mean what you say. Victor nods. That is because I do. Now, can you inform Bruce for me that I am not entering Gotham just yet, as I said I would? He could use the help, and I would not go because of him. It is for the citizens, being. Barry wonders about it. Are you sure you should have us deliver that message? His vote matters. Victor shrugs. If the Bat doesn't like it, it's just because he met his mirror. Until then, let's see how the vote goes. Meanwhile, back at the Watchtower, Zatanna and Dr. Fate are in the process of analyzing Barry's enchanted suit. In the Watchtower, they are in a secure magical laboratory with anti-interference wards. Barry's suit is floating in midair, suspended by golden magical tethers. Dr. Fate stands unmoving, arms crossed. Zatanna slowly circles the suit, gloves glowing. She is frowning as she can't make out the rune structure at all. The runes are shifting like they're programmed not to allow copying. Dr. Fate agrees with her. They are. It is not sentient, but reactive instead. This enchantment framework is new to me. I've never seen anything quite like it. Zatanna agrees with that. Neither have I. The core structure doesn't match Atlantean glyphwork, Egyptian sigils, or even Homo Magi weaves. It masks itself, even from my sight, as if the one who made them to be seen, but never read. Zatanna mutters to herself as she sees a runic structure that keeps rewriting itself at all times. When Victor enchanted the suit, he made it for this reason, so no mage could reverse engineer his DXD rune craft. Zatanna notes something. There's a language here, a proper system of enchanting, but it's like trying to read through a waterfall. Constant motion. Valerian didn't just cast magic. He authored and made it his own. Fate agrees with her. And it works. Heat dispersal, friction nullification, repair matrix, a few anti-scrying enchantments and mental shielding. It's subtle, but it's there. It's refined, integrated, and functional creative. Zatanna asks him a question. So there is no danger to Barry, is there, Doctor? Fate glances at the suit, then at Zatanna. None in the enchanting work at the minimum. The runes are not cursed, sentient, or malicious, so there is zero threat to Barry's life. They do as Valerian said they would. Zatanna glances back at the suit with squinted eyes. Then this Valerian would make an interesting member for the magical side of the League. Fate fully agrees with her. Not many have the gift. He has my vote just based on his enchanting. Zatanna decides that if it comes to it, she will vote yes as well. Now, back at Barry's house, the meeting is in its final stages. Diana stands first, already armed with Valerian, also getting his sword back from the table. She turns to him and says something to end things on a good note. You've given us plenty to consider. Thank you for the candor. We'll give you our answer soon. Victor rises from his throne, and he disperses it into shadows once again. I'll wait. As he stands, the shadows around him deepen, not ominously, but as if the shadows respond to his mere presence. He extends a clawed, armored hand toward Lorna without looking. My dear. She steps forward, places her hand in his, and their armor flares briefly with overlapping shadows. Yami stands too, and Victor's shadow expands with them, wrapping around them as if liquid. The shadows spiral outward like ink in water, liquid darkness into which they sink rapidly into the ground. When they are gone, the shadow spins before his final words emerge. When you're ready, call. I'll come from the dark. Barry glances at where the shadows moved, and he still does not get it. That makes no sense. Shadows aren't supposed to be fluid. How do you enter into your own shadow? Billy is already grinning as he sees that. Okay, that was cool. 10 out of 10. Diana, on the other hand, takes note of the clear use of shadow manipulation and doesn't speak, but is clearly thinking about it. Barry on the other hand is currently poking the floor where Victor, Lorna and Yami sunk into with his foot. Nope, still just floor. Not a puddle. I hate magic. Diana shakes her head. Then it's a good thing he wants to be on our side. Back at Victor's house, when they return to the large fancy living room, he hums as his armor slinks off him in that unique feature of his Twilight-style gear into his shadow, leaving him unarmored. Lorna does something similar with her magnetism as he sits down in his favorite chair. Lorna walks toward him as she sees him in deep thought. Did things go well? He nods. I believe they did, Lorna. Our identities are still secret, but we showed we are open to cooperation. We should be getting a response in just a few days or less. He glanced over at Lorna, who was clearly in deep thought at actually meeting 3 League members. You know, I think I am super lucky you broke into my house. He smiles and he waves his hand, and he telekinetically pulls her onto his lap. On that we can agree. You're too pretty to be a broke girl, you know. She crosses her arms under her chest and smiles. I am glad you think so, master. She said that last part with that big, smug energy he came to expect from her. Gardenia the Seraph and Incinerate Anthem made herself known to them above them with a smug look on her face. So the girl who cried and ran when she saw Victor is now proud. I wish I had pictures of your snot and tear-covered face for the picture book. Lorna waved her hand off at the angel. Go away already. Victor shook his head, and Yami rolled his eyes. Now this is the life. Who cares about my old life? This life is a million times better anyway. He would die on that hill, but he had no intention of dying. Why else did he become a Nephilim werewolf after all? He did wonder when he would be forced to use it. Oh well, the day will come. Now, relaxation. 12 comments 0 vote. The vote, currently up in the Watchtower, in the Justice League Council chamber, where a new vote is about to take place. This time is for the new Central City Vigilante, Balerion. Currently, the members present have read the report given by Diana and Billy, but most didn't really read Billy's. He just said, this shadow dude is chill and cool, let him in the league. Currently, Superman is taking the stage at the head of the table to address the gathered league members. I hope everyone has read the reports compiled by Diana and Barry. Both have met and spoken to Balerion in detail. Billy raised his hand, clearly frowning. Superman sighed. Yes, Billy, you didn't even mention me. I gave a report, too. Superman glanced at the third report, which was written in permanent marker and was just a sentence. Of course, how could I forget your report? Anyway, now it is time to vote. Balerion's request is clear. He seeks formal recognition and league affiliation. He is asking to join the league and stand as one of us. Batman, currently sitting at the table, is clearly not on board. He clearly is a risk and a threat. His use of unknown magical abilities that no one can reference makes him an unknown magical combatant with no clear source for his power. He refuses to give us his identity, which is one thing we all did. Batman is instantly interrupted by Green Arrow. Actually, Bruce, you didn't give us your identity for months. Don't you remember that we had to have a couple of meetings about you not doing that? We voted then that it was optional, not mandatory. Bruce instantly responds as if expecting this. That may be so, but he also breaks bones with minimal provocation. We bring him in, we send a message that brutality is tolerable. Cyborg, who is seated there now, brings up the facts. Bruce, that is what you do all the time. We have had many incidents because that is pretty much all you do. You break bones, cause concussions, as knocking someone out is not clean. As for minimal probation, you say, they are all criminals and they live. Bruce, clearly not expecting to be called out twice, is clearly squinting. Regardless, Diana continues with her point. That also is one thing you two have in common. He hasn't killed anyone just yet, and he gives the people of Central City hope. As for the secret identity that is standard in this profession, and didn't we all start with our identities secret and independent? Many of the members start to agree, as that is pretty much how most vigilantes start. No one asked them to do it, and few operate with a backer. Balerion is not the first, and he will not be the last either. Zatanna now glances at Barry, who is wearing the suit that Balerion enchanted for him. He took it back despite them wanting to keep studying it. Now, we can go over his clear, unique mastery of magic. I don't fully trust magic, I do not understand or can't reference. I couldn't decipher the runes on Barry's suit despite what me and Dr. Fate did to try. They rearranged as if they were programmed not to be read. Whatever magic system he uses isn't ours, and that is what unsettles me. Dr. Fate, behind his golden helm, nods as he was there as well. I examined them as well. The runes are not alive in the traditional sense. They are self-obfuscating, similar to magical constructs in older planes. His method is alien, but not malicious, since I personally searched for any curse, or malicious magical hex, and I found none. Barry smirks in his proudly glittering enchanted suit. Told you. Green Arrow, leaning on the table, smirks as he looks at the suit. Looks fancy, he charging for his services. I could do with a magic tune-up. Regardless, Balerion sounds like a dark wizard Batman with a giant shadow dog. Honestly, Gotham could use the help as we have suggested. Martian Manhunter, the calm one of the group, notes something. From his actions, he clearly is deeply disciplined. With his power it would be extremely easy to end a life with a blow to the right place on the human body, but his deaths are still 0. Batman corrects him. That we know of. I have noted at least 23 disappearances since the time Balerion showed up in Central City. Cyborg nods. That is true, but there is 0 evidence that he had anything to do with those incidents. Central City is a large city center, and people go missing every day. Some never get reported, and you can't blame every missing person on him just because he lives in Central City. Shazam, on the other hand, is leaning his chair with his legs on the table. The wisdom of Solomon says he didn't do it. Plus, he has a dog, and the dog and the dude are epic. I vote yes already. Superman, after listening to all these points, turns to Barry. You met him before any of us, and your wife met him twice, once with you present. Do you trust him? Barry looks down at his suit and the interviews and his 2 talks with Balerion, and he knows his answer. Not 100%, but I do trust him. He hasn't given me a reason not to trust him. Superman then turns to the gathered members. Everyone, it's time to vote. From the table, 2 buttons emerge, a green and red, and the choice is up to the leaguer in question. Superman, yes. Batman, no. Wonder Woman, yes. Flash, yes. Hal Jordan, abstains. Martian Manhunter, yes. Zatanna, yes. Dr. Fate, yes. Shazam, yes. Aquaman, yes. And Green Arrow, yes. The results are out of 11 votes, 9 votes yes, 1 abstained, and 1 voted no. As a result, it is declared that Balerion is gaining a provisional membership, which will be reviewed once he meets with the full league before his first league mission. While the league was having its vote, Victor was in his heavily warded home while deep in study in his ritual room. He had glowing diagrams of Europe hovering around him in a suspended magical interface. Gardenia was over his shoulder with her arms crossed. It's good that you're planning thoroughly. Romania is an old land. The dark breeds differently there. If we were back in my home universe, I would tell you not to be so guarded, but here, we've got to be careful. Victor fully agreed with her. Exactly. We are not going to stumble into vampire territory without preparation. The Phi are definitely going to be worse. One fuck up and you broke one of their dumb Phi rules. Don't eat the foot, don't step off the path or some crap. Romania is a dark land, but not the Phi wilds, that is for sure. I need a soul worthy of Incinerate Anthem's crucifixion after all. Gardenia nodded as that was true. That is the point of this particular Longinus. It was never meant to hang off your neck, it was always supposed to be a burning cross behind you, so I genuinely believe you already have a subspecies Longinus, which is pretty damn rare. The crucifixion aspect might be different compared to the original schematics by God. Victor touched the cross hanging off his neck since that was a good point. He knew the DXDLNs better than most, and he knew this gear was not a piece you could wear, it was a giant burning cross that formed behind you. Subspecies is always fascinating. I haven't even gone balance breaker with either of my gears. Once I get to Romania, I'll scry the ley line fractures, find what's nesting in the Black Mountains. Though we got something they aren't expecting. Gardenia smiles. Incinerate Anthem, the second most holy object turned into a Longinus by God. The cross and the spear of Longinus were all touched by the blood of Jesus Christ. Victor raised his hand, enveloped in deep purple holy fire. Exactly, my angel. Those bloodsuckers will burn like they don't know. After the vote was tallied and it was determined that only Hell and Batman either voted no or abstained, he had won by a landslide, with 9 of 11 in his favor. They waited 2 days, not because they needed to wait, but to allow the league members time to either change their votes or argue in favor of or against. It was clear, though, that only Batman wasn't a fan, but he had already been called out twice, so he was more silent than useful. After 2 days, it was clear that he had won the vote. However, they now had a problem about how the hell they were going to get in contact with Balerion, since he could literally just jump into his shadow, and no one knew where he lived. So Barry said he would get in contact with Balerion. That night, when they needed to find Balerion, Barry, after dark, stepped out of his house. Iris was with him and was wondering how he would find Balerion. So what are you going to do? Run around until he drops by. Iris shook her head as that might not work, but what choice did they have? Barry could tell she didn't buy it. Just trust me. After that, he took off and started running all around Central City. He wasn't looking for Balerion directly, he just hoped that he noticed him after dark, since Barry didn't normally operate at night. At his speeds, though he could cover most of Central City rapidly, and within 5 minutes, he got lucky when Victor dropped down from a building in front of his path. When Barry saw that he almost crashed, something that actually made him take pause was when Victor sidestepped him, showing extreme reaction speed. Barry took note of it before he managed to stop and run back. Hound, of course, was right there jumping out of Balerion's shadow, and Lorna flew in from that same building. Balerion crossed his arms as he glanced at Barry. Testing out the enchantments or looking for me? Barry walked over, glad he found him. A bit of both. The League managed to come to a vote, and you got 9 votes in favor against 2. Balerion glanced at Lorna, who, despite being in her fully concealing armor, clearly gave him a thumbs up. And here I expected to have to struggle for a few votes. Most impressive. Now then, what now? Do I take a provisional status, or do I have to do a full interview with the full League? I am fine with whichever. Barry once again notes that both once again. We've got to get away to talk to you, but we need to go to the watchtower. You ready? Balerion nodded, but he remembered one thing. Hold on. He reached down and deactivated his anti-scrying rune on his armor, since it also protected him from stalites and other such technology. Done. We're ready. With that, Cyborg in the watchtower finally got a lock on them and, through a Zeta tube, brought all 4 of them up to the watchtower. Once they arrived, the 11 members of the League instantly locked on Balerion, as once he stepped off the teleporter, every shadow and light in the room seemed to drift to him. He waved his hand, and he basically willed both to stop. I am Balerion, this is my apprentice Polaris, and my familiar hound. Barry has informed me that this is going to be my introduction to each member of the League. Yes. Superman walks toward him and extends his hand. Yes, that is why we are here. Allow me to welcome you to the watchtower. Victor reaches down and shakes his hand. It is my pleasure, Superman. First let us all sit. Balerion takes his seat beside Superman and Shazam while Yami jumps into his lap in full armor. Lorna stands right behind him, partially leaning against his chair. The first thing anyone notes about him is obviously the armor and his sheer bulk. In full plate, he is 7 feet tall, but under it, he is around 6 feet 8, so he is an intimidating specimen. Superman starts things off first. On behalf of the League, I want to thank you for coming. We are fully aware that you seek to enter the Justice League, and through your actions in Central City, we see that your method is reminiscent of Batman, but just like him, you haven't been killing. Is this accurate? Balerion nodded. That is correct. I do seek League status since I am aware that operating solo permanently can leave you isolated, and I do value my independence, but I am fully open to cooperation. As for comparing my methods to Batman would also be accurate, but unlike him, who is limited by his lack of magic or meta abilities, I am not limited by human restraints. Just that Batman cuts in as he clearly has reservations. I would not say your actions are like mine. I have limits, while you clearly do not. The broken bones are not the issue. The incident where you left a man without limbs through fire was a clear use of magic for torture. You also have cut off arms and legs with that sword on your back, so you go further than I do. Balerion glanced around at the other members of the League, particularly Victor. Victor Stone, Cyborg, glad to see you. I would like you to show that particular incident report as reported by Joe West, who found the guy. I did what I did because I saw him in the process of trying to force himself on a child, so I dealt with the problem with permanence. Cyborg did as Balerion asked and showed Joe's report. This clearly states that the man in question was a registered predator and had previous convictions. The individual, when found by police in the morning, confessed to his crimes, and the victim in question clearly said they were saved by Balerion. That checks out. Batman frowns. That clearly does not excuse the excessive force you used. This was too far. Balerion crosses his arm. What about Jason Todd, who has killed quite a few individuals in Gotham since his resurrection from the Lazarus pit and his time under Joker. Everyone goes silent, especially Batman. Green Arrow turns to Hal and elbows him in the shoulder. He has a point. Batman glares, but doesn't respond. Valerian keeps going dead calm as he runs his hand down Yami's back. You and I both use fear, and we have both broken more than a few bones. The only difference is that your enemies come back every few months and are mobsters, mine wear gang colors. The difference is mine doesn't go to Arkham, I get them, I break them, and they live. As for Red Hood, your former Robin shoots who he wants, so who is really the menace here, Batman? Lorna snorts and begins to gently run her hand across his helmet's fanged jaws. Zatanna glances at Lorna and asks about her. You're the apprentice, right? Polaris, are you a homo magi, or a meta? Meta, I just learned magic from the big guy. That made everyone present think about it. Victor glanced around, and he stood up. I think it best that I take my leave for now. I will let you all process. He extends his hand toward Lorna, who reaches out and takes it. The shadows immediately pull the three of them down through the floor like mist catching fire, causing them to vanish. The silence is instantly broken by Barry. Okay, but seriously, how do they keep falling into shadows? They're not liquid, they're not solid, they're shadows. Zatanna rolls her eyes. Magic, Barry. Green Lantern crosses his arms. He does remind me of Batman if he talked more, had magic, and a metal wolf. Wonder Woman had to agree. He's blunt, but not wrong, and he did call silence Bruce with Jason. Superman nodded, and he brought up a good point. The vote still stands. He's in, but he's under review for now. One major league mission, one full debrief. Then we revisit. With that, the meeting was ended, but it was clear that Batman was not happy. Then again, when was he happy? 49 comments 0 vote. The countermeasures and preparations for spying. Damn it, I keep disappearing, I miss high school. Following the meeting where Victor finally got his league status agreed on, after he left the Watchtower, he went to his home in Central City, where he instantly sat on his large couch while his armor burst into shadows and light and slinked down into his shadow. Lorna did the same with her magnetism to turn her armor into metal dust before she placed it on the rack by the wall, which her armor formed over. She then let herself fall onto Victor's lap as she crossed her arms. So, tell me the truth, what are the chances Bruce lets this pass? Victor shook his head. He doesn't even trust his closest friends. He will be getting contingencies and plans for both of us by the end of the day. He is so paranoid he wouldn't trust his own shadow. Lorna smirked as she pointed at the shadows. After you, neither would I. Yami's shadow-based armor split off him as the god-slaying dog sat down by the couch chair. Victor squinted his eyes. True, he doesn't use magic. He refuses to use magic, but getting his league friends to enchant items or collecting them to protect his shadows from me, totally in his purview. I bet that is what he is doing now, of all things. He was not wrong, as after the vote of the League, Batman was currently under Wayne Manor in the Batcave with his cowl taken off, and he was typing out a few observations for his contingencies. Alfred walked closer before he placed a hot cup of tea down. Master Bruce, you appear tense. Bruce squinted his eyes as he looked up at the plans and images he took of both Knight Valerian, and his apprentice, Polaris, and the dog. I don't trust him, Valerian. Magic users are already some of the most dangerous beings to face for me, and yet he has operated in Central City without any sightings when he doesn't want to show himself. He became a terror of the night. He brutalized men and criminals in a form similar to myself, only even further. Broken backs, ruptured organs, no one actually died from his attacks, but several have died from their injuries days, even weeks later. Alfred glanced up at the image that Bruce took from his cowl of Valerian sitting there, in full enchanted plate armor, sword on the table, dog in full armor on his lap, and the green-haired woman behind him, both fully covered head to toe in armor. And from talking to him, what did you discover, Master Bruce? Bruce waved his hand, and the Bat computer began to do a deep analysis of every detail of the images. First, take Knight, or Valerian, in full plate armor. He is at least 7 feet tall, and the sword he carries is massive, longer than he is tall. He gave Barry an enchanted suit which Dr. Fate and Zatanna struggled to read. From what Barry said, he can react and dodge Barry. I compiled the reports given by the criminals, and he jumps out of the shadows, sometimes with dozens of shadow clones of his dog or himself. He isn't just a shadow user, but a master in pyromantic magics. His flames burn hot enough to ignite concrete and steel, and he is borderline, proud, secretive, and takes a kick of humiliating me. Alfred nodded. Dangerous as a foe, and invaluable as an ally. Good thing he wants to join the League. Bruce scowled. Does he? Or is he infiltrating? Alfred raised an eyebrow. You'll keep an eye out regardless. Now, what about the apprentice? Bruce zoomed in on her. She is a metahuman, said so herself, and her scans did beep as a high-class metahuman. Magnetism, for weeks, she has run with Valerian, and she appears to be able to manipulate metals through electromagnetism. She is utterly loyal to Valerian, but clearly not a servant. She is pretty chummy with him, hugging him from behind, playing with his helmet, and she is a magic user on top of her meta ability. In a city, she is Cataclysm. Alfred had some things to say. Electromagnetism, when everything in the world makes use of steel and other magnetic metals. Even your suit and gadgets, sir. Bruce nodded as he noted it down, but a bunch of question marks appeared as he tried to analyze. Hound. The dog, it is one of two things on his person that gives me the creeps. Diana herself said getting stared at by it made part of her tingle. Like something in that thing made her blood itself jumpy. Alfred raised a hand to his chin. Which part? Bruce paused. The god part. Whatever that dog or not dog is, it's not an animal, but it's not an item either. It's something, and it's what gave me the biggest sense of wrongness. That and the cross around his neck, it's this silver, gold, and purple cross that glimmers and vents heat. Artifacts, magic, a familiar, a meta that can use magic, and Valerian himself. Batman was already drafting up countermeasures in case Valerian and Polari went rogue. But unlike the League, he made as a precaution these countermeasures he felt he might need. Alfred, on the other hand, looked at the images he took, and he wondered who Valerian and Polaris were under the helmets. Regardless, back in Central City, Victor was leaning back, dozing just slightly as Lorna remained curled up on his lap. He suddenly opened his eyes, and he glanced down at her. Hey, Lorna, wake up. She opened her bright green eyes, a little tired. Yeah, what's up? He helped her up. Want to take a little trip? She got up and stretched out like a cat. Where? He smirked as he began to use magic to even out his hair and his clothes. Gotham. We go to the richer districts, see the sights, and go to a restaurant, while my shadow and light hounds run around, running reconnaissance over Gotham. We can see where all the big gangs run, and then we can go in at night and start hitting them one by one. She smirked. So, a date. First one. He nodded. Call it what you want, dear. She glanced down at her outfit before she smirked. Well, first let's go to the mall. I got to get something nice, not gaudy or flashy, but as you put it, I was broke. Now I got cash, and I want to use it. Victor smiled as he and Yami began to walk out, as they were already dressed. He had jeans, black boots, and a tight black t-shirt. Lorna was, on the other hand, wearing running shoes, yoga pants, and another t-shirt, and a green hoodie so they would not stand out badly in any high-end restaurant. Even Victor was not that blind. Fair point, to the mall. Before they walked out, Victor waved his hand, and around Yami, a service dog vest formed. There we go, now Yami can go with us. With that, they both stepped out of the house before locking it magically behind them. As they were walking to the nearby mall, he reached down and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Yami walked at their side, looking like a normal dog, with bright red eyes and a crimson gem in his forehead, so they were quite inconspicuous. Not even Gardenia, who appeared above them, floated around, arms crossed under her chest, 12 wings behind her. Walking around like this, you two almost look domestic, if not for Yami. Yami whined as Gardenia just smiled at him. She reached up and pulled up one half of her blindfold, showing off a bright golden eye. Anyway, so now we're going on dates. Sounds fun, when do I get mine? Lorna rolled her eyes. Gardenia, later. Now go back to your cross before someone sees you. Just then, someone crossed the street right next to Victor, and Gardenia waved her hand at the guy's face. Hey, right here, loser. You suck. He didn't react as Gardenia glanced back at Lorna. See, no one can see me. Anyone without the magical sight is unable to see me since I am technically a spirit or soul now. My real body got lost when God stuck me in that cross. But, because you're going to be so adorable about it, sure. Gardenia floated close to Victor before she winked at him, pulled her blindfold closed before and hid back inside Incinerate Anthem across his neck. He patted the cross once before they kept walking, before they got to the mall, which was not too far, all things considered. When they walked inside, the first thing she did was pull them toward one of the big-name stores nearby because of her dad's financial troubles. She hadn't had a good outfit like some of her friends. As such, when they walked inside, Victor saw that it was a store for women, and already Lorna was looking around while he and Yami glanced around. Lorna suddenly grabbed a nice band t-shirt and even a blouse in the same grab. "Hey Victor, which one?" The t-shirt was black with a cool design, and the blouse was white. "Well, I like black, so I'll say the t-shirt." She glanced at it and she tossed it over her shoulder. "Got it, black, green, red, and blue. As for me, I like blue, always did." She also reached out, and she even picked up a pair of skinny jeans. She smiled as she looked at the jeans that had a few cuts. "Think I can pull it off?" He chuckled. "You do have the legs for it." She raised an eyebrow, and Yami glanced at Victor, who said it plainly. "You also got the ass for it." "There, I said it." She snickered. "Glad you noticed, being a meta helps with that. Now, we're gonna be here all day. Let's get you some new outfits, too." Victor was honestly glad to see her so chipper. So despite himself, he went along to every store letting her try out new outfits, new blouses, jeans, skirts, shoes, and anything she wanted. As for him, he got some new pants, a new leather jacket. By the end of it, both he, Yami and Lorna walked out of the mall carrying a bunch of bags. Yami had a few in his mouth, hanging off his sides, and one off his snout, and he was clearly not pleased. Victor had spent a dozen $100 bills, but for him, with all the cash he had stolen, that was chump change. But seeing how freaking happy Lorna was to see all the clothes, shoes, blouses, jackets, and other things she got, he felt it was worth it. "Lorna, you like having money." She spun around, her arms heavy with bags. "Yes, and now when we go to spy on old Bruce Wayne's city, I'll look great while doing it. Besides, I am going to get dolled up for you, master." "You should," he thrilled. "We're going on a date, and we get ready to tear up Gotham's criminal groups while Bruce complains." Yami is carrying a bunch of bags, perked up, tail wagging at the idea of finally getting to go into Gotham. There was so much crime to take care of, so many evil people to disappear and hide in his shadow. Yup, the League thought Victor didn't kill, he most certainly did, just that the corpses stayed inside Yami's shadow dimension, and Victor made it discreet. That is why it was only a theory that he killed, but Batman had the right idea. But when they got back to their house, and they stepped inside, Lorna waved her hands, and every bag that belonged to her began to levitate. "Be right back, might be a few hours, then we can go to Gotham and see what we find." She floated upstairs and closed the door to her bedroom. Yami growled at Victor, which he understood. He basically said, "Women," and Victor shook his head. "Don't start. Anyway, let her have her moment. As for me, I have to go shower and get changed into something good. Can't look like a slob after all." With that, the bags he bought for himself levitated, and he pulled them into his bedroom to get ready for his date in Gotham.